What's up, guys? I'm Chad Barnes, and welcome to the channel. Here, it's all about real car talk, from simple fixes to smart driving tips and keeping your ride in top shape. If that sounds good to you, go ahead and give the video a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button and make sure you watch all the way through. There's a lot of good stuff coming. Let's get to it.
Beginning in the 60s, Skoda 1100 family cars were in constant demand not only in the native Czechoslovak Republic, but also in neighboring socialist countries, GDR, Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria, perhaps only in the USSR and Bechki, as they were affectionately called by Czechs themselves, were not represented, competing with Moskvich and Volgas on foreign markets. Nevertheless, in the Czech Republic itself understood perfectly well that the re-engine layout, especially in the small class, is a design that has no special prospects. Soviet Zaporozhye and Italian Fiatics were noticeably smaller in size, and in the segment of 4 doors and 4 meters the classic layout completely dominated. In 1967, the management of the Czech automobile plant decided to turn to it, having conceived a large-scale project providing for the creation of several cars of different classes at once. The first of them, which received the conventional designation 720, belonged to a higher segment, which was characterized by a large wheelbase, about 2.25 meters, and a range of engines with a capacity of 1.25 to 1.5 liters. The OHV engine with a displacement of 1,250 to 1,500 cubic centimeters could be squeezed to 2 liters. At the time, this displacement was considered more than sufficient for this class of machine. From bigger to smaller, it was planned that the car would receive not one, but a whole line of bodies, the traditional 4-door sedan and 5-door station wagon, as well as a coupe. The project Big Skoda was headed by František Uliff, design was engaged Ivan Rozek, and the engine, František Fridrimic. Regardless of the body type, the 720 was to receive modern forms and fully independent suspension, front struts of McPherson type, and rear multi-lever, and both in front and behind the designers provided the presence of stabilizers of transverse stability. The second line of models was also to consist of cars with different body types, but, based on the more compact dimensions, under the hood were to be engines with a volume of 0.9 to 1.1 liters. That is, the 740th, in spite of the higher index figure, should theoretically be in the unspoken table of ranks about a step lower than the Soviet Moskvich. Let's not forget that there were no Giguli at that time, and instead of the Italian Fiat 124, the analogue of the junior prototype Skoda could be considered the East German Wartburg 353, while 720 corresponded to the class and ambitions of the very experimental Moskvich 356, which we recalled at the beginning of this article. Appeared in 1966, Skoda 720 looked fresh, modern, and bold, something subtly reminiscent of both Swedish cars Volvo and Saabs of those years. Surprising was one of the body variants, hatchback, because at that time the world had just seen a 5-door Renault 16, and in the USSR were finishing the development of IZH 2125 Combi with a body of liftback modern forms and fashionable body. The hatchback, if not ahead of its time, fully corresponded to it, without discounting the socialist origin of the prototype. In terms of dimensions, with a body length of 4.4 m, Skoda 720 was comparable with full-fledged representatives of the segment D, and it can be considered an analogue of the Soviet 41st Moskvich, and more precisely, the French Cinca 1307-3108. That is, the socialist project neither visually, nor in terms of consumer properties was not too inferior to real Western cars like Volkswagen Passat of the first generation, which appeared in the next decade. The running prototype of the 5-door was equipped with a rather powerful 1.5-liter engine, developing 93 horsepower, thanks to which the car needed only 16 seconds to reach the first 100, the indicator of the Soviet Zubel, and the speed dial stopped at 150 kilometers per hour. So quickly in the socialist camp in those times drove a few cars, especially relatively affordable. A year later, several sedans with different engines, from 1.25 to 1.5 liters, were added to the 2-volume body, as well as a coupe with a 2+2 seating arrangement, which received an even more powerful motor, 98 horsepower. The power increase was achieved due to a different carburetor, intake manifold, and piston group. Italian trace. Despite the fact that the prototypes looked very modern, officials gave a less than flattering assessment of the prototypes, especially criticizing the appearance of the concepts. That's why the Czechs decided to ask for help from Maestro Giugiaro himself, who they managed to reach by roundabout ways. However, Giorgetto at that time was still only a young and promising designer, who had just opened his own body shop Italdesign in Turin. The result of negotiations with the Italian were sketches, which Giugiaro sent to Mlada Boleslav in 1969. Designed from a well-known in Europe, albeit starting his famous way Italian designer could become for the Czech car a real lucky ticket. In order to become a full-fledged and successful participant in the saturated Western European market, for Czech designers and constructors. Such a move in addition promised access to modern materials and technologies. Volkswagen K70 production sedan. For 3 years several running prototypes were created, on which modern technical solutions such as disc brakes on all wheels, as well as automatic transmission and even fuel injection system. The contract with Italdesign amounted to 40 million Czechoslovak crowns, and the first batch of 5,000 cars of 720 family was planned to be produced in 1973. The compact prototype with the Index 740 also received a 5-door hatchback body, and externally the car remotely resembled the later Alfa Romeo Alfasud, although there were no direct borrowings from the Italians, and its design was worked on by a Czech named Josef. With the talking surname Che, take a look at the Italian Alfasud model, which appeared a year later. Something went wrong. Many automotive historians are inclined to the version that the big and small ambitions of Škoda in those years were hindered by the Prague Spring, which was followed by tightening the screws both inside the Czechoslovak SSR and in relation to this country by the masters of the socialist camp. After all, in pursuit of foreign currency, the USSR not only produced and exported its own Moskvich, Volga, and Zaporozhets, but also Russified the Italian sedan, and the entry of new front-engine Škodas into the markets could hurt all car plants of the Council of Mutual Economic Assistance countries. There was, however, a more prosaic reason. The prospective models of the two fundamentally new families were not unified, and their production required complete modernization of the existing equipment. At that time, the state had not budgeted for financing that would have allowed the 720-740 projects to move beyond mock-ups. In addition, just in 1969, the unitary state of Czechoslovakia was reformatted into a federation consisting of two equal republics, Czech Republic and Slovakia. At the same time, Bratislava decided to create its own automobile plant BAZ, which we recalled not so long ago, and such an outflow of already scarce investments in the Czech car industry in the late 60s was the final nail hammered into the coffin of this double project, all work on which was stopped in 1972. Let's not forget that at that time Avtovaz entered foreign markets with its unit, and for Škoda there was a real period of stagnation, which lasted until the release of the favorite model. But that's a completely different story, about which we have already told in detail. In conclusion, the journey of Škoda's lesser-known prototypes reveals a fascinating chapter in automotive history. While models like the Fabia and Superb have become household names, these intriguing designs remind us of the creativity and ambition that often go unrecognized. Each prototype, with its unique features and innovative concepts, tells a story of what could have been, shaped by the challenges of market demands, technological limitations, and strategic decisions. As we reflect on these forgotten gems, we gain a deeper appreciation for the evolution of Škoda and the ever-changing landscape of the automotive industry. Thank you for joining us on this exploration of Škoda's hidden past.